Four suspected bandits who allegedly assassinated a worker of Santa Lucia here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, have been arrested by gendarmerie officers. They were presented to the public today. They are said to have killed the worker while he was heading to the bank to deposit money from the company. And the United States Congress tells President Paul Biya that elections cannot take place in the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon without a return to peace and normalcy in those regions. Those were our top stories. The Littoral Gendarmerie Legion commander has urged big companies to recruit professionals to transfer their money to the bank. Colonel Abina Ahanda Francois made the call today while presenting four suspected bandits who allegedly killed a worker of Santa Lucia while the worker was transporting money to the bank, about 20 million francs CFA. Smart Jikan Gilbert reports. Smart Njikan Gilbert with that report on four suspected bandits who allegedly killed a worker of Santa Lucia in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The worker was heading to the bank to deposit 20 million francs CFA from the company when the hoodlums or the suspected bandits attacked and killed that worker. And the Littoral Gendarmerie Legion Commander Colonel Abina Ahanda Francois has urged companies, especially big companies, to recruit professionals to transfer their money to the bank. And this incident further speaks volumes of the degree of insecurity in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Manjik and Gilbert. We'll be coming back to that report in a short while. Time for us to talk about the United States Congress, which is urging the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, and his government to restore peace and normalcy in the northwest and southwest regions of the country before any election can take place. Details with Fomi Armstrong Sander.
Page document addressed to President Paul Biya of the Republic of Cameroon. The U.S. Congress explains that the crisis in Anglophone Cameroon has been worsening, unlike the picture painted by the Yaoundé regime. The U.S. Congress refused the assertion that non-state arms groups are responsible for most of the violence and atrocities like rape committed on Anglophone women in the northwest and southwest regions. They later cite what they call a broad spectrum of international and domestic experts disagreeing with the government of Cameroon on the above assertion, and went further to state that soldiers have raped women either for opportunistic or punitive reasons. The United States Congress, like the U.S. Secretary of State in charge of African Affairs Thibault Nagy, think that military action cannot solve the Anglophone crisis, urging elements of the Cameroonian Defense and Security Forces and armed militias to direct their effort towards a peaceful resolution of the Anglophone crisis. The United States Congress consequently encouraged President Paul Biya to accept the Swiss-led mediation to end the Anglophone crisis peacefully. They regret that the crisis has had a ruinous effect on the economy of Cameroon and further warned that U.S.-Cameroon relations would depend on the government's commitment to engage in a sincere dialogue to end the crisis. The United States, it should be recalled, terminated Cameroon's rights to the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act (AGOA) on accusations of human rights violations.
And I said it earlier, the U.S. Congress is saying that there cannot be any election in the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions of the country without a return to peace and normalcy in the Anglophone parts of the Republic of Cameroon. And while opposition politicians hail the CPDM, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement's political parties, politicians saying challenging this opinion of a group of individuals by ignored the situation on the ground, and of course the fact that Cameroon is a sovereign state. EQUINOXE.
Addressed to the head of state, the Congress of the United States House of Representatives in a letter demands return of peace in Anglophone Cameroon before holding of twin elections February next year. This has not stopped cultivating reactions from political dons.
Les leaders politiques disent que non. Pour les régions du sud-ouest et du nord-ouest, nous avons computé les dossiers à Yaoundé.
Barrister Asher Emmanuel Agbo of the Reforms Party says the US sees the tricks being played by government that orders holding of elections in the northwest and southwest regions, which is practically impossible.
Parler des listes déposées dans le BLM, on connaît. Ça fait plus de 2 ans que personne ne peut y aller.
To the CPDM, there is need to ignore the outing of the Congress of the United States House of Representatives, as it is opinion of merely individuals who want to discourage Cameroonians from exercising their voting rights.
Leur opinion par rapport, n'est-ce pas, à la gestion.
Andre Luther Mecca of the CPDM condemns the letter and emphasizes need for elections to hold despite the refusal of parties not to participate, tending to cry foul to the international community for it to be suspended. On the part of the CRM and its allies, it is blasphemy if the truth is not told on a Sunday. The CPDM, he notes, must admit the recommendation contained in the letter and open eyes to see it is impossible for elections to take place amidst the socio-political crisis in the 2 English-speaking regions. He adds that there is no need to laugh over holding of elections in these test regions. That if candidates were unable to deposit their investiture files in these 2 regions, then it would not be possible for them to campaign for elections.
Vous voyez donc que c'est le serpent qui se mord la queue.
The letter of the Congress of the United States House of Representatives to President Paul Biya and the incoherence of the decentralization codes on the special status for the Anglophone regions constitute preoccupations of political actors.
Parce que vous êtes le grand Dieu en haut là-bas et vous donnez des miettes à qui vous voulez. Si vous ne voulez pas donner d'assemblée, ne donnez pas.
And in reaction to the bill on decentralization and local development being examined by lawmakers at the National Assembly in the nation's political capital in an ongoing extraordinary session of Parliament, some opposition politicians in the views posted on social media say the glass is half full. There is still a lot to be done for the decentralization process to be beneficial to Cameroonians. And of course, Hermine Luga compiled their views in this report.
Still featuring in Cameroon's historical records, the government has splurged on several occasions to accelerate the decentralization process and targets helping local councils improve on the organization and functioning of councils in order to step up citizen involvement and promote local development. Within this plan of action, we recall January 2019 state commitment to accelerate the decentralization process of the country, as stressed by Prime Minister Joseph Dion Guti during the start of the year. Thus far, nothing seems to have met the targeted plans. And this has been criticized by some political actors who consider the decentralization process a failure. With recent deliberations on the set decentralization process, Jean-Robert Waffer of the Social Democratic Front, for instance, has it published on his Facebook handle, the General Code of Decentralized Local Authorities, the glass is half full. According to him, there have been progress, but also weaknesses and traps, such as the absence of a firm deadline for the implementation of the different new rules, the lack of the amount of the fraction of resources transferred by the state to decentralized local authorities, the special education system and the judicial system on the national languages, which are not included in the General Code of Decentralized Local Authorities. And just like him are similar other reactions on the opposition side, like that of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Celestine chairman, who has also criticized the General Code of Decentralization, among others.
And Senior Barrister Shu Emmanuel Agbo, member of the Cameroon Bar Association and national president of Reform Party, says that the special status as defined by the Decentralization and Local Development Bill being discussed in Parliament is an empty vessel. He thinks that much of what is going to happen in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, if effectively the special status is implemented as defined in the bill, much of what is going to be happening in those two regions will be determined from Yaoundé, and this is in line with the manner in which the organs, the elected organs, are structured and will be functioning according to that bill. In the meantime, the former Minister of Public Works, Patrice Ambassador, thinks that the bill grants an acceptable degree of autonomy to the people of the northwest and southwest regions of the country and other parts of the country. And they were speaking to us in the Inside and La Vérité en Face, respectively. Take a listen.
I think that by that noble intention, the bill intends to take us back to restore the West Cameroon House of Assembly, which had those two houses, which had the House of Assembly and the House of Chiefs. But they don't want to call it House of Assembly. They say House of Divisional Representatives. Yeah. In fact, I don't understand where this type of thing comes from. House of Divisional Representatives. It was House of Assembly. If you want to restore the House of Assembly, go ahead and restore it. But now, where the problem comes is that they are creating a legislature which is a totally empty basket. Look at what has to be done inside this legislature. First of all, the House of Assembly, the divisional representatives, is going to be presided over by who? By the chief executive. The chief executive. So it is the regional executive who will be the president of the lower house, which they call Divisional House of Representatives. His assistant will be president of the House of Chiefs. I mean, it is a legal incongruity, because what they are doing there is simply giving Southern Cameroon a municipal assembly with consultative powers.
Consultation.
A municipal assembly with consultative powers, that's all. So that may be consulted. That's all.
The regional assembly, will it enact or produce laws?
Thank you. That's why I sent you back to Article 331, sub 2. That says that assembly will have the same powers as the regional councils in the other regions of the country. That is to say, they deliberate. They deliberate. They don't enact any law. You've seen it, that going through the whole thing, there is no place there where they say they can enact any law. They are going to be deliberating. And that's why I said, what we are actually seeing is they're putting in place of a municipal council that is endowed with consultative powers. That's all. If that special status is being presented as a means of ending the Anglophone crisis, then I'm very sorry that it's a stone thrown into the ocean.
Patrice Ambassador, in the later part of that extract, said that the bill which is being debated in Parliament grants an acceptable degree of autonomy to the people of the northwest and southwest regions of the country to freely manage the affairs of the different municipalities making up Anglophone Cameroon. And I asked Barrister Shu Emmanuel Agbo what should be done now if he considers that the special status being granted to the northwest and southwest regions of the country, or to be implemented, is an empty basket that is not going to change anything in those two regions, and that cannot solve the Anglophone crisis. What should be done now? And this is what he said.
Once that the crisis be put in, the civil war be brought to an end, it has to do more than what we are seeing in that special status. Let them grant real autonomy. I mean, give Southern Cameroon its statehood. Because the cry there is for the restoration of the state. If you take it too far away from that restoration, it will not interest anybody. Normally, we are supposed to. You see, normally we are supposed to be in a confederation. Normally, if you want to look at it in strict legal terms, we are supposed to have a confederation, not a federation. But between the people who are asking for total independence and those who are asking for unitary state, for this unitary state which has led us to trouble to continue, there is the middle line of the federated state. So if they were even proposing a federated state, because remember that the UN and the US are minded to restore federation. So should we go through UN intervention, who they send arms here and peacekeepers to come and end up in a federation, which might even lead to total independence, like in the cases of Eritrea and South Sudan? Because when the UN comes in, you don't master their plan of action until they leave. They go when they want to go. You cannot tell them anything. The problem is to stop them from coming. These parliamentarians are behaving as if we have many more appealing options. We don't. They should put on the table something that is acceptable, not only to Cameroonians, but also to the international community.
Officials and persons close to the government are blaming the bad state of the Babaju-Bamenda stretch of road on the insecurity in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and also the ring road that remains incomplete till today, uncompleted as a result of insecurity. We asked Patrice Ambasala, former Minister of Public Works, what government has been doing and why is it that these two roads remain in a bad state today, or incomplete, so to speak?
When you talk about Babaju-Bamenda Road, you are aware of what happened there, because the rehabilitation of the road was already on. We had a contractor there called Sogia Satom, who has been attacked and the truck burned. You know about that?
So,
yes. If you then, after that, if you want to count the road which the situation is preoccupying us, we must not put this on the list, because we have.
Is the state unable to secure workers on that road?
It doesn't occur like that. When we are working, we don't have to put the army behind the contractor. Then the thing is that we must seek for peace, to let the contractor work freely and in security. That's the reason why all the efforts are made to bring peace back in this country, in that area. That is the job to do. We must bring peace back. Then the contractor can start working freely.
Mr. Minister,
c'est ça les conséquences, non?
Where is the ring road? What is happening with the ring road?
When I was there, I was about to finish the first section of the ring road. That means Ndop to Kumbo. After, I cannot say where is the ring road. I think the ring road is still there, and we are looking for I've heard about this convention to be signed. I think next week, last week or the second 2 weeks, there were a meeting where agreement was signed that we are going to finance the construction of the second section of the ring road. I think the whole section of the ring road.
Former Minister of Public Works of Cameroon, Patrice Ambassador, also blamed the poor execution of public contracts, notably as far as the construction of roads in Cameroon is concerned, and corruption and misunderstandings between the Minister of Public Works and the Minister of Public Contracts, or the two ministries. Beside all the things that you're explaining now, there is something which is generally talked about in public opinion. I'm talking about critics who have been saying that the high cost of projects, public projects in Cameroon, is as a result of the inflation of cost by some individuals involved in the execution chain, and the issue of percentages that have to go into private pockets. I'm talking here about corruption.
Yes.
What do you have to say about this?
Corruption is a problem for everything that can do in the public life of a country. Cannot afford to put the margin of corruption. What we have to do is to fight against corruption. But when we talk about the projects, the amount of a project comes from the studies. I don't know if you say that after the study they put the amount of this corruption inside. I don't know. If the amount of a project comes from the studies, what we have to do after is to undertake the project in a way that we don't waste time. We don't create delays and things like that. We move fast track in this kind of operation. Corruption is something that occurs during the execution of projects. It can be also observed in the studies, in things like that. But if you have corrupted people in your administration, what can you do? You just have to fight.
Is it possible that a road is being constructed, a major road is being constructed, and the Minister of Public Works, which you were for 4 years, does not have full mastery of the company that is constructing that road and what the company is doing? I'm asking this question because recently the present Minister of Public Works was here in Douala, the east entrance into the town, and he was asking questions to the company manager. Where did you start constructing roads? Why should you be constructing a major road without establishing a minor one where vehicles can be using and things like that?
You have the contracting authority, who is the Minister of Public Contracts, and you have the project owner, who is the Minister of Public Works. The contract has been issued by the Minister of Public Contracts, and what the Minister of Public Works was asking, it was to mark the surprise of the fact that the work was organized as he has seen. It was something that everybody can be surprised of.
Coming up, our Southwest correspondent Derek Jato takes a look at difficulties faced by Cameroonians in their quest for healthcare services and the non-implementation of the universal healthcare policy in Cameroon. Derek Jato.
The concept of universal healthcare coverage originated some 70 years ago. But Cameroon is still at an incubation stage.
We are still at the early stages of universal health coverage. We have not started fully implementing it. In the last General Convention of the Cameroon Medical Council, this was a key theme, universal health coverage. It's something that is going to kick off in 2020.
And 12 December is the International Day of Universal Healthcare Coverage, during which the United Nations has a duty keep reminding government of countries to provide quality health care services to every person, no matter who they are or where they live. In Boya, the 2019 edition was celebrated by Hero Cameroon. Dr. Njambeng Emmanuel highlighted that for a nation like Cameroon to achieve universal health care coverage, all must come on board.
It is about solutions that are sustainable. It is about collaboration with other stakeholders. So these are some of the things that we can begin by doing, by coming together, setting up common goals which are sustainable and which are feasible.
Matching plan with action saw the coming together of medical students from the Faculty of Health Sciences of the University of Buea to Dr. Njangbeng Emmanuel, the organizer. It is the best foundation to achieve universal healthcare coverage.
So we are here today to enlighten our medical students on their key role they have to play, and then to also encourage them to keep challenging the status quo, to keep solving their community problems, to tailor their energy towards attaining universal health coverage.
And medics are advancing reasons why Cameroon is still lacking behind.
And now we are actually getting to the point where you have non-communicable diseases, you have drug, alcohol addiction, mental disorders, and it needs that we come up with ways to prevent them.
The design of health in Cameroon in the future is very, very important.
The 2019 edition of Universal Healthcare Coverage was celebrated under the theme, Keep the Promise.
4 suspected bandits who allegedly killed a worker of Santa Lucia in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, have been arrested by officers of the National Gendarmerie. The alleged bandits are said to have killed the worker while he was heading to drop 20 million francs CFA in a local bank. And the Littoral Gendarmerie Legion commanders urged companies to recruit professionals to transfer their money to the bank. Smanjikan Gilbert has more.
Part 1 of the presentation of these alleged bandits who killed a certain Kenyan Defo David was at the main office of the Gendarmerie in Bonanjo Douala. With chains on their legs, the 4 alleged bandits moved out of their cells. Yauba, aka DJ, still serving a 12-year jail term at the Douala Central Prison, was the one who killed the Santa Lucia worker having the money. Yauba was assisted in the operation by Jubrila Bombo, Sulemanu Sali, and Fotso Victor Calvin, who was in charge of security at Santa Lucia, and all were ex-convicts.
Yauba, je suis là pour un braquage et assassinat.
I'm here because I stole and killed someone. I was the one who killed the man. It was an accident. Our goal was to come and collect the money. I had 4 million francs CFA. Their presentation was alongside the motorcycle that was used during the operation. Unfortunately, Fotso Victor Calvin says the assassination of the Santa Lucia worker wasn't part of their plan, and he was shocked. I didn't know that it will be like this, because I thought it was just to collect the money without injuring anyone. After the presentation, a press briefing was held by the head of the operation that enabled the arrest of the 4 alleged bandits. Colonel Abina Ahanda Francois explained to the pressmen that the investigation was done by the commander of the Douala 1 Gendarmerie Brigade and those in the office in the fight against high criminality. The first arrest was on December 4th and the last on December 10th. Amongst the 4, Suleiman was the only one who was caught out of Douala in Banyu. One of the survivors of the attacks explained, I can't actually count the number of bullets I received, but I personally received 5 bullets. I didn't even realize that I was shot. It was after they had left. I saw myself soaked in blood. After the presentation at the head office in Bonanjo, the convoy went down to the field for the reconstitution of the act. Their first stopover was at Santa Lucia, Cité, where the thieves trailed late Kenya.
then the Bonamusa de Santa Lucia, and finally at the Deido roundabout, where the two Santa Lucia personnel had to leave a car and used a motorcycle to transport the money to the bank in Bonanjo. As the end of year approaches, the head of the Legion Office of the Gendarmerie in Douala is assuring all of a peaceful end of year feast.
Nous voulons en dernier ressort rassurer toutes les populations.
We want to assure the population of Douala that in collaboration with other forces, our preventive actions will continue during this end of year feast.
De défense et de sécurité, nos actions préventives vont se poursuivre en cette période de fin d'année.
With the arrest of the first set of thieves, the officials are now looking forward to put their hands on a member of the gang who is still on the run.
Smart Njikan Gilbert and Innocent Bega putting an end to the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thanks for joining us in Talking Point. Our guest in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast is a historian and civil society leader, Gilbert NGIMNDOH. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here again.
The United States of America rejects the assertion that most of the atrocities committed in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon are committed by armed separatists.
Yeah, they have reason to refuse because facts are coming from the ground and the facts are very realistic, very convincing, and beyond doubt. Those facts which are published and brought up from both sides, the government, some international non-governmental bodies, human rights groups, and even the activists themselves on the ground, civil society through social media, and then we have separatist leaders themselves who live out there and who have direct contacts from the ground. They furnish these facts to the United States, to the Congress members, and I think that facts that are given by government, when they contradict with those from other sources like non-governmental bodies, like human rights groups, like others which are unbiased, I think the United States Congress is being objective to be able to diagnose the facts and realize that it is necessary to tell the Cameroon government to its face that their claims are unfounded. I think so.
And in the letter written by some congressmen to President Paul Biya, and of course the one written by the Congress or the President of the House of Representatives to the United States Ambassador to the UN Security Council, a bleak picture of the situation is painted with facts and figures, and this is in sharp contrast to some of the some information published by governments and other persons, including Cardinal Tommy, who was saying that the situation is gradually improving in some areas.
What I would like to say in the first place is to precise the figures that are given by the Congresses to the representative of the United States in the Security Council. You know, presently the USA is leading the UN Security Council, and the reason I precise these figures is so that we should know actually what is on ground, probably coming from these groups which I just cited, the NGOs, the human rights groups. They have, that letter contains the following figures. We have more than 3,000 deaths already. We have more than 800,000 internally displaced. We have 35,000, more than 35,000 who are seeking asylum in Nigeria. Then we have more than 600 children who for 3 years have been deprived of access into education. And Anglophone, we have more than 4.3 million Cameroonians who are dying in need of humanitarian assistance. These are the specific figures that were handed to the United States representative president to the National Assembly. I would like to, my comment or my impression from here is that it is very unusual. I have not seen this elsewhere. I didn't see this in Iraq. I didn't see this in Libya. I didn't see this in Cote d'Ivoire. I did not see this in Congo, Kinshasa. I didn't see this in Central African Republic, where a government is lobbied like the UNO and the US are lobbying Cameroon. I did not see that. I simply saw resolutions. Now, this letter that was written to the Security Council urges them to push or to put pressure on the Security Council to pass a resolution that will call for an end to the situation, to the conflict that is causing the situation in Cameroon, the socio-political situation in Cameroon, to become horrendous, and which, despite the horrendous nature, the government is still politicizing and downplaying it. What I would like to say here is that once a resolution is passed after a fact-finding commission, which that letter calls for, when that fact-finding commission, which is independent, is sent on the ground, and facts are brought out to determine actually the causes of the atrocity crimes, the UN will pass a resolution. And we know that once a resolution is passed, it may delay, it has not even delayed, the UNO will definitely come into Cameroon, and that's when the state of things will degrade more and more, especially for ordinary Cameroonians.
All right. I was indicating earlier that the government and of course members of the CPDM think that these organizations, these foreign bodies, want to destabilize Cameroon. They want to hinder citizens. They want to frighten citizens that they may not go and vote and so on. They may not go about their activities, that they are not presenting the real picture on the ground.
They are very good at using such statements, but it is time, those you rightly said CPDM. I wouldn't have used that because my impression always, like I have always said on media like this, that there are some Cameroonians who are bent on plunging this country into mud or rubbing the name of this country into mud. I have not used that word CPDM. If you use it, then I buy it. But
some of the politicians of the CPDM were talking on droit de réponse over the weekend, and they think that some of these figures and facts are inflated, you know, to present a picture that is not the reality on the ground.
Well, but let them know that Cameroon is an independent country, a sovereign country. But when a family head fails to resolve a problem between children, he shouldn't forget that neighbors will hear and they will come in when they notice the situation is getting out of hand. And they should be reminded that Iraq was sovereign when Resolution 1441 of March 2003, after Hans Bleak reported to the Security Council that diplomacy has failed. When Resolution 1441 was passed, the UN forces descended into Iraq. Libya was sovereign when Resolution 2016 of 2011 was passed. And when it was passed, the UN forces descended into Libya. Cote d'Ivoire was sovereign when Resolution 1975 of 2011 was passed by the UN Security Council. The UNO forces descended into Cote d'Ivoire. What happened in Central African Republic when Resolution 2127 of 2013 was passed, MINUSCA descended into Central African Republic. So, when they continue to joke with the fate of ordinary Cameroonians, who will suffer more when those forces will finally come, because with the arrogance of our government officials, I am very certain that some people up there in Yaoundé will push this situation to get to a level where the UN will have to resolve on using a resolution to send forces to Cameroon. And they should be reminded that in 1914, when Kaiser William II of Germany provocatively pushed Austria to declare a war, thinking that it will limit in the Balkans, it became a global war. And when it became a global war, ordinary citizens were those that suffered. He escaped, and that is how ordinary citizens were those that were suffering. Cameroonians are telling those provocative officials to weigh their lips and make sure that they stop putting out featherweight resolutions which cannot go anywhere to resolve the problem in the Northwest and the Southwest. Because that problem may have been trivial from the beginning, but it has got to a level where there is nobody who can freely say he has an answer to it. The government can resolve this problem even as of now. The issue is that of will. The President of the Republic can decide to meet. Last time previously I said, when a hunter is in the bush sees his game, he should aim and shoot at that game and stop looking elsewhere if there is another thing around that game. The government knows who to meet and resolve this crisis.
Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel Agbo said this should be done fast to prevent the UN forces from getting into Cameroon, to prevent getting to that level where the UN will come in to handle the matter for Cameroon. And you indicated earlier that when the UN forces will come in, the population or the citizens will suffer more. Why is it so?
They will suffer more because those who have used provocative statements and those who have refused to provide adequate solution to solve this problem will be somewhere very comfortable. The forces are not coming to fight in Yaoundé. They are coming to march to West Cameroon. And when they march into West Cameroon, any confrontation with whosoever, the results are going to be directly on the citizens who are, as of now, already very seriously affected and in dire need of humanitarian assistance. That is why we are insisting, Cameroonians are insisting, not only Anglophones, Cameroonians, because this situation has got to a level where many Cameroonians are becoming aware, many Cameroonians are getting conscious, and they are beginning to see with the plight and with the problem that the Anglophones are putting on the table. If it is not well resolved, if it is not resolved the way they need it. Last time when I watched your program, I saw one of those people, one of those very arrogant Cameroonians saying that on a tout donné aux Anglophones. I think I should remind that personality that this Anglophone he is trying to cajole around, this is a state which in 1954 already had its government with a parliament of 13 members, with a prime minister, a pre-independent government. A period when French Cameroon was non-existent when it comes to any decolonization process. This state was already having a pre-independent government from 1954. Following the Licton's constitution, it granted them a semi-autonomous assembly. And French Cameroon was nowhere. So I wonder how somebody who has evolved politically, it needed that politicians should leave the other part of Cameroon who were buried under French assimilation, French prestation, all those notorious French policies. They didn't have any political conscience by then. They needed that they should cross to West Cameroon and learn political debate. I wonder how we are talking of on a tout donné or Anglophone, a situation which is supposed to be the contrary.
The U.S. congressmen are urging the head of state to accept the Swiss-led mediation. Do you think that should be the right track to take out of the Anglophone crisis?
From the onset, the Swiss-led mediation was supposed to be objective from the preambles that the Swiss-led delegation was putting on the ground. Before the national dialogue, the show that was put up in Yaoundé, because that was a show, they came in and went out as they came in, because nothing very substantial came out of that. The Swiss-led, on the contrary, the Swiss-led delegation was already proposing what was supposed to be very inclusive, very objective, and in that way, if it was followed in that dimension, I am very confident that the situation in Cameroon would have far ameliorated, and many West Cameroonians, Anglophones, would have been given in so that we return to our state of normalcy.
All right, and the U.S. congressmen also think that no election can take place in the northwest and southwest regions of the country if there is no return to peace and normalcy. Gilbert, NGIMNDOH historian and a member of the civil society, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, for staying with us.